How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is December 13, 2016, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. A lot of news to talk about here tonight, including the final Raw before Roadblock into the line, the whole New Day story as they set the record 2 days early, longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champions of all time, Alberto Del Rio, Insanity, a lot of other stuff. Dave, what's going on?
Just what you said.
Well, let's kick it off with Raw. What did you think of the show tonight?
I thought it was pretty entertaining. I liked it. I mean, they built the whole thing around the tag team title record, and they pretty much teased the idea that they were going to get screwed out of it on the last day after they won the first match, and they still won. So, I mean, it would have been kind of silly to have them keep them as champions for all this time and then have them lose before setting the record, especially when the record's held by, guys suing the company. So, it made sense in the end, and it was a good finish because I think a lot of people thought that that probably Jericho and Owens were going to win because Roman Reigns and Rollins. I mean, I guess they could win too, but they had a good match. I liked the last match. It had a lot of decent twists and turns and everything like that. So, yeah, overall, I thought it made the show. The Sami Zayn stuff with Mick Foley actually was really good, very well done, and that was. And then the rest of the show was kind of just the rest of the show.
Starting last week when they first announced they were going to do a three-way this week, where the New Day could have the record snatched away from them and lose the tag titles in a three-way where they didn't have to be beaten. I thought, man, that's pretty creative. And then they put the match on first. And my initial thought was, man, why is this match going on first? You guys learned nothing from...
No, I knew that they had to...
Well, as soon as they won and they did the thing backstage and they sprayed Stephanie with champagne and she's furious, I thought, oh my God, I see where they're going. And this is actually great. And it was. It was a great show-long storyline. And at the end of the day, the New Day won. But I thought the whole thing was pretty cool, so...
Yeah, I thought it made for a fun show. It'll be interesting to see how if the audience stayed and actually was interested in the record or not. They pushed the record pretty hard, which is funny because just if you look at the whole history of the whole thing, when months ago when they beat London and Kendrick, they were said to have set the record then, and they actually completely ignored the fact that Demolition had the record, and when they did it, so many people said, no, Demolition has the record. So then they redid it. And they said, oh, Demolition has the record, and it's 476 or 477 days, whatever it is. And they went on a new quest. So the New Day couldn't lose the championships again for months longer. Finally, now they can lose the titles. And it's actually probably time to lose the titles just because, there's no one left to beat. They've beaten everybody so many times that it's, and the Sheamus Cesaro team has, that odd couple thing, they kind of had to win, and they had to delay their win for a while. So I figured that it's probably coming soon, or they just kind of killed that tag team if they don't win it pretty soon.
So the show did open with New Day coming out and doing a promo, and Xavier Woods say he basically was in the middle of breaking down, dedicating this match to his grandmother when the fans started to chant "Grandma," and he started laughing. And he felt much better afterwards. So they started with the tag title match. It was
you missed the line, didn't you?
About how... What line?
The line
They're doing this for everybody, including those who are no longer with us?
No. The big, thick, meaty third leg. Big E talked about his big, thick, meaty third leg.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, they did the New Day, Sheamus and Cesaro, Gallows and Anderson match first, and it was Kofi Kingston and Big E for the first match, and they beat on Big E for a long time. Sheamus made a blind tag, ran wild on Gallows. Gallows and Anderson actually had the win, but Cesaro saved the match and the titles, and he did this comeback where Cesaro literally ran wild on four guys inside and outside the ring at the same time. The place was going crazy for this guy.
That was so awesome, all the stuff that he was doing.
He hit a giant high cross for a near fall, did the swing on Anderson, the sharpshooter. Big E made the save. And finally, Sheamus and Cesaro laid out Anderson, but Kofi flew in, hit the Trouble in Paradise on Sheamus, and pinned him as Big E prevented Cesaro from breaking it up.
Yeah, Sheamus used the bro kick on Anderson, so they had the match won, and then Kofi used the Trouble in Paradise on Sheamus, and then they won.
So the segment ends with them celebrating. They're screaming that they've broken the record. So they go backstage, and Stephanie is there arranging a toast for the New Day. And they're celebrating, and she's doing the dance, and they pop open the champagne, and of course it sprays all over and drenches Stephanie. And she's furious. It's in my eyes, and she storms out of the room.
No sense of humor.
And I thought, man, oh man, I know what's coming.
Yep.
And sure enough, Kevin Owens met with Stephanie.
She turned the bowl of cereal over and stormed off.
That's right. She just put an end to this party. Yeah. All that work that went into this party, and she just ruined it.
Yeah. Bob Backlund was at the party.
A lot of people at the party. Yeah. So Kevin says, listen, Steph, these men don't deserve to be champions. She says, I'm cold, make this quick. And he says, I've got an idea. She goes, I'll go in and change and come back and listen to your idea.
She never came back.
Well, she did. We just never saw the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Braun Strowman faced Curtis Axel. And Strowman hit a wheelbarrow face-first slam and pinned the guy, which is way better than the face-first choke slam. So Byron gets in the ring to interview him. And Braun, of course, demands a congratulations before the question. Byron asks about a tweet that Sami Zayn had sent out where Sami wants a match or else. And Braun says, nobody could last 2 minutes with me. Then they played his music. So Sami's backstage with Foley. And he's outraged. He wants this match. Foley says, I'm not giving it to you. Now keep in mind, Foley is okay giving total jobbers and guys like Curtis Axel, who are basically total jobbers, matches with Braun Strowman, but he cannot give Sami Zayn a match with Braun Strowman.
But it was all a work.
It ended up being a work.
It was all a work. It all made sense in the end.
And Foley says, I know you can't beat him. And Sami's all upset, and he says, fine, maybe I don't need to be on Raw. And Foley says, listen, if you don't want to be there, I'll call Daniel Bryan right now and we'll work out a trade. And Sami sold it like he didn't really want to go to SmackDown, but he had to take a stand.
The fans were like cheering. It was so weird. They wanted him to go to SmackDown really bad.
Well, it's weird because Sami and Cesaro, there's kind of this ongoing thing where they both want to go to SmackDown on social media. Cesaro's always talking about it. Daniel Bryan's made offers to Sami, like on Twitter. I mean, it's kind of a thing that they should be on SmackDown, but now the story is that Sami doesn't really want to be on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Ari Daivari and Lince Dorado, no heat. Jack Gallagher comes out. He announced his intention of interfering in the match. He says he does not condone unsportsmanlike behavior, but Daivari's a scoundrel. And the fans chanted scoundrel at him. They had a brief fight, which was not very good. Gallagher sent him packing, and Cole used this opportunity, this horrible segment, to plug 205 Live, which was taped in advance. It is not live because of Tribute to the Troops.
Yeah, so they taped it actually before, which is why was it Perkins' chest was all beat up when he came out because he actually had wrestled Rich Swann earlier in the night.
So what were the matches?
On 205 Live? So they had Jack Gallagher beat Drew Gulak, which was mostly a comedy match. Lince Dorado and Mustafa Ali had a double count out. So I guess that's going to build a rematch for them probably on the following week's show. And then TJ Perkins beat Rich Swann in an on-title match with a knee bar. And Brian Kendrick came out, and TJ Perkins kicked him out of the ring. And it ended up in a stare down with TJ Perkins and Swann. And that was that. So that'll be on tomorrow night's show. And they will, so Rich, essentially, Kendrick beat Perkins, and Perkins beat Swann. So on the pay-per-view in the three-way, Swann's probably beaten Perkins and Kendrick.
Makes sense to me. Seth Rollins came out.
So they have Tozawa. Well, Tozawa is in Australia, so I shouldn't say that. But they have Grand Metalik. He's around now, and they're not using him.
Well, he's coming soon, just like Emelina.
Yeah, I know. She's coming soon.
Do you know that as of 3 o'clock Eastern today, in the Raw 5-point preview, 5 points, by the way, for a 3-hour show, one of the 5 points was Emma debuts tonight.
Well, she was supposed to debut tonight, and then they changed the script because
it's just hilarious.
Well, that happens every week. They change the script. They ran out of time.
I know it changes every week, but it's very rare that one of the 5 points that they promote for the show, they don't do.
They ran out of time. They had a cut. They had other things that were higher priority, like that Lindsay Dorado match.
Yeah. Thank God we got that on the air.
Yeah. I mean, that's weird, too, because, well, let's see. Because Gallagher didn't even wrestle. You would watch this and you'd go, "This is an angle to set up Daivari and Gallagher wrestling on 205 Live," but they didn't even wrestle on 205 Live, so you really didn't need that. But I guess that was only about a 2-minute segment. Maybe they wanted to debut Emma, because one of the things on the show tonight is there was very little with the women because Charlotte. I don't know if Charlotte's back in town yet. Because I had heard she'd be back for Raw. But she went overseas to film stuff. I think she's back, but maybe they just gave her the day off. They just had the video package of her. So really the only women's stuff was the Bayley Alicia Fox thing, which was nothing. So they had very little of the women's division on the show. So, you in theory, you probably would have had more. But she got the axe. What can I say?
Seth Rollins came out, said he wanted Triple H, but to get to him, he had to go through Owens, and he can't go through Owens till he goes through Jericho, so that's why they're having a match on Sunday at a Roadblock end of the line. He says he's concerned that he's going to be facing both men on Sunday, and he calls out Kevin Owens to find out if him and Jericho are still friends again, and Kevin's out there, and he's hemming and hawing, and Seth is trying to get him to talk about Jericho, and Kevin finally spits out his big announcement, which is, "I talked to Stephanie, and she agreed that myself and Chris Jericho will be teaming up tonight to take on The New Day in a second match for the tag team titles." And Jericho came out, and he's angry. Says Kevin has to be crazy to think he'd be his tag team partner tonight or next week or ever again. Kevin's apologizing, saying, "Listen, we need to stop thinking about the future. We need to think about right now. We can win the titles tonight. We can become the champions." And Seth, of course, in the ring is still trying to cause trouble. Calls him Bon Jovi and Meatloaf.
I kind of got a kick out of that.
Jericho, so did the crowd. Jericho's so angry.
I mean, usually their comedy sucks, but that was a pretty cute line.
He heads down. He threatens to put Seth on the list, but then he says it's the disabled list. And he heads down there. Him and Kevin beat the hell out of Seth Rollins. Seth's plan worked out great here. Gets his ass handed to him. And then finally Roman Reigns comes out to make the save. And that leads to the announcement later by Mick Foley that he is adding Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins to the match. It is now a 3-way for the tag titles. And once again, the New Day can lose everything without being beaten.
Yeah. So it's really interesting watching Jericho because they know that if he puts somebody on the list, the place is going to explode. They're just waiting to cheer for it. So now he doesn't put anyone on the list, but he teases it and then he takes it away, which he did again here.
We had a segment backstage with Charlie and the outlandish Rich Swann, which is what she called him, the outlandish.
Well, on the 205 Live, they call every single mention of Rich Swann was the outlandish Rich Swann.
I know, but when she stood there in front of the camera and announced the outlandish Rich Swann, God, this is bad.
It always comes off awkward. It's not something that you would say. I mean, it comes off bad when Mauro Ranallo does it, when everyone does it. It's just too forced. But that's the way it goes.
So he's out there, and he's not at all outlandish. And Kendrick shows up, says it's every man for himself. Perkins shows up. He's going to do whatever it takes to win. Swann says we'll find out Sunday. Anyway, these segments with the cruiserweights backstage are all about accentuating their negatives. This was no good.
Yeah, I just thought it was there. I mean, I don't know. I can't say it was good, though.
So then we had Kendrick and TJ Perkins. And not their best match, but they worked hard. Pretty good for a generic Raw TV Cruiserweight match. No heat. Kendrick went for the captain's hook. TJ switched into a knee bar. Kendrick then just got the ropes, posted the guy, and hit sliced bread number 2 and pinned him.
Yeah, that's the whole finish, that whole finish of a guy who's like right about to lose, and then he just wins. Like, it's like he's in a move that should almost beat him. This guy's knee should be out. He gets right up, does his finisher, and wins. No,
yep.
With almost no. There was
a finisher, by the way, that involves running up the ropes after being put in a knee bar.
Yeah, but that's, like I said, WWE and CMLL have that style. I don't really like it. Whenever I see it, it looks like really fake, but it's just that's part of their MO.
So we had Seth and Roman backstage at the Mick Foley segment where they got added to the main event. They hyped up the Iron Man match at the pay-per-view on Sunday. And then we had
They made a point to say that this is the end of the feud with Charlotte and Sasha, that there's no rematch. So we're either going to get Sasha win and defend against Nia Jax, who we never see. We never see. Where is she? And then we have or Charlotte defending against Bayley, which was the original idea for this pay-per-view, or the last pay-per-view and this pay-per-view. So we're going one direction or the other, depending on who wins that Iron Man match.
So Bayley and Alicia Fox have a match. This was set up with a goofy angle where Alicia ripped up a Bayley bear. So fans were just getting started with a boring chant when Bayley won with the belly to Bayley.
Yeah, Bayley got this big pop when she came out, and then once the match started, there was no interest in the match at all.
It was Alicia Fox.
Yeah.
They're fighting over a bear.
Well, no, Bayley made she thought she was hitting on Cedric, although she wasn't. So it was like a spoof on a paranoid woman.
The issue was Bayley had given a bear to Cedric, and so Alicia destroyed the bear. So basically they were fighting about the bear and the man.
Yeah, I guess.
They had Lana and Rusev out. Rusev said he had destroyed American Hero since day one, but last week he destroyed an American Trash. He said Enzo called himself a certified G. The G stood for garbage.
I thought it stood for gullible.
So last week they kicked out Enzo, and then he and Lana did their business. Wanted to know if the fans wanted to see what he was talking about. Crowd fell for it, or at least played along.
I don't think they fell for it at all.
Told the children to close their eyes.
They didn't fall for it, because it was really a pretty light reaction. And even with a light reaction, you could see it was all tongue-in-cheek.
So they showed footage of what they do behind closed doors, and it was the footage of them killing Enzo. And Lana laughs, says every week Rusev, she says it over and over, he's the only man who can have me, and Enzo thought he had a chance. What a fool.
No, he was quite the fool.
He was a complete idiot.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out, watching this a second time, where he's like, I gotta go. And she goes, take off your pants. And it's like, if you gotta go, let's say you're somewhere, right? And you're late on time, okay? I mean, do you, take off your pants before you leave? That makes, no sense in the world.
Well, he did it, and he paid the price.
Yeah.
So Big Cass lurched out, challenged Rusev, a fight broke out, wasn't very good. Rusev retreated to the back. And later they announced that they will be fighting at the pay-per-view, and I believe that is the pre-show match.
Is it really?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I knew they were fighting. Yeah. Well, I guess that makes sense if you think about it, because the Charlotte match and the Kevin Owens match are going to be really long.
We had Owens and Jericho backstage, and Owens cannot believe Foley put Roman and Seth in the match tonight, and Jericho's just rolling his eyes and basically says, I don't want to hear about your goofy future plans, let's just get through tonight. He's still not on the same page with this guy. We had the Emma announcement, she's coming soon. Sami Zayn faced Jinder Mahal. They build this as potentially Sami's last match on Raw. No heat. Sami wins with a kick, and then Mick Foley comes out. And Foley says, after a long negotiation with Daniel Bryan, we have agreed to trade you to SmackDown for a comparable talent. All you've got to do is sign these papers. And Sami says, listen, I'm going to ask one more time. Are you going to give me this match with Braun Strowman or not? And Foley says, I know you want this match, but we know that deep down you really don't want it. And so, no, you're not going to get it. And so, Nick says, listen, I know it's going to be nice to be a big fish in a small pond, but before you sign these papers to go to SmackDown, I want you to know who the talent of equal value is going to be that we're trading you for. And he says the talent in question is Eva Marie.
What a burial of Eva Marie this was.
Oh, yeah. Sammy blows his stack, and he flips out. He's worth 100 Eva Maries, 1,000 Eva Maries. Flips his lid, screams at Foley. He's so angry he actually shoves the guy. And Foley then reveals it was all a ruse. He says, I want you to remember all of this anger and vitriol, and I want you to take it into the ring on Sunday when you face Braun Strowman at Roadblock into the line. Opens up the thing, the paper's blank. There was never an agreement to trade. He was just trying to get Sammy all fired up. And so after they announced the match, Foley then says, Braun claimed that you couldn't last 2 minutes in the ring with him. So Sunday night, we're giving you 10 minutes.
So the deal is that he's going to last the 10 minutes.
Yeah. No one has to be beaten. Sammy will win, so to speak, by being killed for 10 minutes but not losing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I mean he'll get a lot of offense in.
You know what? Maybe he'll beat the guy. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not,
you know what's good? You know what's good about this feud? I'm actually going to put something over other than the angle they did here. These guys are wrestling on some of the upcoming house shows.
Yeah, they're wrestling. They did squash matches all weekend.
Well, listen.
Unfortunately, they were squash matches.
Braun Strowman needs to start doing longer matches.
Well, unfortunately, their matches at the house shows this weekend were 3 to 4 minutes.
Well, maybe he can move up to 5 to 6 minutes.
Well,
but if they want Braun Strowman to get better, it's a good idea to get him in the ring with Sami Zayn at the house shows and have him go 12 minutes.
No kidding. And Sami Zayn should be good enough. Well, I don't know. He wasn't good enough to carry Titus O'Neil, so. But pretty much almost anybody else he can have a good match with.
Well, you know, I think if he had 5 matches with Titus O'Neil, I bet they could get a good one by the end.
We didn't see it.
Well, they only wrestled once, right?
Twice.
Oh. Now, see, that's twice. Need 5 times at least.
Yeah.
New Day versus Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins for the tag team titles. It was Big E and Xavier instead of Kofi in there. Had a long match. The first half, the crowd was dead. And then finally, Seth got a hot tag and started running wild with dives, and the place got into it. Reigns got a blind tag, tons of near falls. They did the big parade of finishers with everybody hitting a big move.
They did a double Tower of Doom spot that got a really big reaction early in the match.
That's right.
Right before the commercial break. Then
I know. Why do they hit these big moves and then go to commercial?
Yeah, why do they build up the momentum and then go to the commercial? I mean, I know why they do, because the idea is that it gets exciting, then we'll go to the commercial break, so you'll stay through the commercial break. But then they got to rebuild the momentum that they just had built up. So, just how they do it. Yeah.
So Jericho and Owens finally hit their combo powerbomb codebreaker finish. Owens tries to stop Rollins from interfering, but Rollins shoves Owens, and Owens falls on top of Jericho to break up the pin. And Jericho's furious at Owens for falling on him. They yell at each other. They get in a shoving match. Seth shoves Jericho into Owens. Owens flies outside, and then Seth hits Jericho with the pedigree, and Xavier covers Jericho after Big E yanks Seth outside. So Xavier gets the pin for Granny, and they win the match, retain the titles, make history for the second time in one night, and away they go. So they're out of here, and Owens and Jericho are in the ring. They get in this big argument. They're yelling and screaming at each other, and Jericho tells him, "It's over, I don't need you." And as they're arguing, everybody starts to boo, and I'm like, what are they booing for? And they zoom out, and there's Roman Reigns setting up the spear. And Jericho leaves, tells Kevin to turn around. Kevin gets speared. Everybody boos. Roman gets the title. Everybody boos. And that's how the show goes off the air.
He held up both belts. Yeah, he got booed. Everything he did.
Everything he did.
Yeah, he got booed. But it's Philadelphia. I mean, it happens in most cities anyway, but in Philadelphia, there was no chance of anything but that happening.
So the lineup for Roadblock Into the Line on Sunday is Big Cass versus Rusev. We've got Sami Zayn, Braun Strowman, 10-minute time limit. We've got a 3-way for the Cruiserweight title with Rich Swann, TJ Perkins, and Brian Kendrick. We've got the Sasha Charlotte Iron Man match to end the feud, they claim. Rollins versus Jericho and Owens versus Reigns only for the Universal title. So Roman Reigns can in fact leave with both belts.
Yeah. I figured they'll add a New Day match too.
You'd think.
Yeah, I would think that they will add a New Day match. Probably, I mean, who knows? I would think Sheamus and Cesaro will be in it. It might be a multiple team. They may do the 4-team with, what's the 4-team they've been doing? Anderson and Gallows, Sheamus and Cesaro, and well, it won't be Enzo and Cass. So it'd be the 3 teams probably again.
All right, let's talk about this Alberto Del Rio situation. Yet another incident with Alberto Del Rio.
He's had a lot of incidents.
He sure has.
Yeah, whenever you have somebody, I learned this, from Brian Pillman and Scott Hall and so many guys where you have like incidents regularly, it's like never good. And it's a sign. Like one time, sometimes like one thing can happen, maybe 2, and you just go, well, stuff happens, right? But when it's over and over and over, and it can't always be the other person's fault, especially in this case, because there's been similar stuff that's happened here. Alberto is.
There was another story from, I can't remember what podcast it was on, Conan's podcast. But
that story's not true though.
Oh, it's not.
That he slapped Dorian. I mean, I don't know that it's not, but I was actually told, kind of like someone who knows, pretty much said they gave me a bunch of details, but that.
Well, did he storm into Dorian's office upset that Dorian was trying to trademark Alberto El Patron?
Well, Dorian absolutely did try to trademark Alberto El Patron, and he absolutely was upset. But the idea that he slapped him, they got guards there and things like that. I mean, I don't know. I was just told that the slapping didn't happen. Was he upset? Absolutely. Did that happen? The other stuff happened? Absolutely. So, but I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe it did, but that's just what I was told. But the there's stuff going on there. So, but I mean, he had the right to be upset because they claimed it was for his own good, but they did the same thing for Phoenix, trying to trademark Ray Phoenix, which is the name that Phoenix was using after leaving AAA. They're just trying to. I don't think they were trying to screw with Alberto. They absolutely were trying to screw with Phoenix. There's not a doubt about that. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird deal. But so he's at the show in Naucalpan yesterday, and there's big 90-minute main event, and after the match, he's going backstage, and it's just a very thin staircase in the back of the arena, hallway and staircase. So you kind of have to it's hard to move in and out with someone's going one way and someone's going the other. So this Ninja Turtle, Alan Extreme, Rafi the Ninja Turtle, was going one way, and Alberto and Paige were going the other way. And Alberto believed that he touched Paige inappropriately and started to yell at him. And Raf, the turtle, who's much smaller, just kind of try to blow him off. And Alberto, got madder. And then Rafi made the big mistake of shoving Alberto. So Alberto starts throwing punches, and Rafi tries to throw punches, but he basically got overwhelmed real quick and got bloodied up, and it was over really quick. And there were fans who saw this. And there was the wrestlers in the promotion were furious, but Alberto and his brother and Paige were gone. But it could have been, if they didn't leave right away, it could have been a really bad situation. And the director, the guy who's kind of in charge of the shows there, he very much said that, if Alberto ever shows up in this building again, ain't going to be good. So it was a pretty heated situation. So, yep. And actually, it got all over, and Campbell McLaren was backing Alberto, which of course he would do since Alberto's his public face of the company, and just loves the fact that Alberto can get. Alberto was, with all the negatives of Alberto, obviously there's situations here. Alberto, when it comes to schmoozing and being a representative of the company in Mexico and bilingual and everything. He's really, really good, which is why he keeps getting these opportunities to make so much money. Even though he's like, he doesn't last anywhere because he always gets so damn unhappy over everything. Although I think that the Combate stuff, the one thing with the Combate stuff is that unless that there's a screw up with the money, in which case he'll probably get really unhappy. He'll probably last there because what always gets him mad, like in WWE, and he had a right to be mad in WWE. He was booked really crappy. And in Lucha Underground, I can't say he was booked crappy in Lucha Underground at all, but he thought he was. So the one thing is that when you're in a combat sports situation, there's no crappy booking. It's like it's just, especially when you're not a fighter at all. So, yeah. So I think that he may last at that job.
We got the full lineup for the Tokyo Dome coming up on the 4th.
Yeah, I mean it's basically what we talked about the other day. There's there's basically a few changes. So Cody the American Nightmare, is going to face Juice Robinson, which that could be a tough match for those two. It probably will be, because I don't know when they showed the video for Cody. Of course, it was Sendai, and the people didn't know what to expect and all that. But when they showed the video, it wasn't like the people were going that crazy for it. Juice has gotten a lot better, but it's still the Tokyo Dome and a singles match with two Americans with no championship at stake. It's going to be tough. I mean, I saw that match and I'm going, Tokyo Dome, the Tokyo Dome is really tough unless it's like a really big match. It's like feast or famine. It's like, if the people are really into it, I mean, if it's like a really big match, it usually comes off real well. But if it's just a match, the people, especially on a long show like that, and they're just in the middle of the show, the people may use that, whether it's to take an intermission or, because Cody's, I mean, I don't know how much that WWE stuff is going to mean for him, because obviously he's never been to Japan except for WWE. So there's he doesn't have that history there or anything like that. I mean, he is Dusty Rhodes' son. Dusty Rhodes was a big superstar. That could mean something, but it's been a long time since Dusty was, a big star in Japan. I mean, when we're talking, that's 30 years. I mean, I think Dusty worked at Tokyo Dome in in 92. I'm pretty sure he did. But that's still 25 years ago, because it's January 4th. So it's 25 years ago. So it's not like it's that recent to where, a lot of this fan base that they're drawn from, they were really not grown up Dusty Rhodes fans. So yeah, that'll be, so then they're going to do, so the trios title. So the rest of the matches are, pretty much as we expected. The trios title is going to be a gauntlet. So they're going to have, they've got, 4 different stables. I presume that it's going to start, it'll start with one of the non-championship teams. So the Bullet Club stable is Bad Luck Fale, Yujiro Takahashi, and, God, who's the third guy? I should remember this.
Bad Luck Fale, Takahashi, Hangman Page.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's see why I forgot him. Okay, so then the Chaos stable is Yoshihashi, Will Ospreay, and Tomohiro Ishii. And then, of course, the LIJ is Seiya Sanada, Evil, and Bushi. So they'll probably do the LIJ and the Bullet Club or the Chaos, one or the other in a singles, and the winner will move on for another trios match against that other team, and then the winner of that will move on and then face Kojima, Ricochet, and David Finlay for the championship. So, by the way, Matt Sydal is fired from New Japan. He is back in the United States now. Finally,
kind of has to be, right?
What?
Can he get back into the country?
I doubt it. He's on probation there, so I don't know what that means. But yeah, I mean, it's possible he could go back into the country, but it's Japan, and it made the paper, so New Japan kind of had to fire him. I mean, especially because like marijuana is just viewed very negatively by the public there. So there really was no choice. And it's not like he's like a superstar main eventer. So, you know, it's not like, and even if he was, the reality is even if he was, he would still be fired. So anyway, so then they'll have that. I'm trying to think what else. Then everything else, stuff that we've mentioned, you know, the Bucks against Romero and Beretta, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly for the Ring of Honor title, Shibata and Goto, Kushida against Kamatachi for the junior title, Tanahashi, Naito, Omega, Okada. And then there's going to be a match which on paper sounds like it could be like, you know, Tonga Tangaloa and Maccabi and Hanma. So all those title matches. And then then the New Japan Rumble, obviously. They have that every year. And then there's going to be Tiger Mask W, who this is the second time he's been there, and the first time it was Kota Ibushi. And Tiger the Dark, or whatever it is, whatever his name is, and that's going to be ACH. So Kota Ibushi and ACH actually on paper is like a pretty tremendous match. It's freaking tremendous. But I wonder, because the first time that Kota Ibushi worked as the new Tiger Mask, that head that he's got, the headpiece, is so freaking impossible to work with that it was like, I mean, it was probably the worst Kota Ibushi match I've seen. I've seen Kota Ibushi work with stuffed animals and have better matches than that match. So I think that with ACH, it'll probably be better than a match with a stuffed animal, but it's still, I don't think it's going to be like you would think Kota Ibushi and ACH at the Tokyo Dome would be like a 4.5 star match, or, you know, something like that. And I don't think it'll be close to that, but hopefully it will. But it's, you know, I mean, I'm sure the matches are going to be great. I don't see how, you know, Tanahashi and Naito's obviously going to be a great match. Okada and Omega might be match of the year. The problem with Okada and Omega is that anything short of match of the year, it's actually going to be viewed as a disappointment. It's almost like the standard is, the expectations are too high for that one. They'll probably live up to it because Kenny Omega's pretty much obsessed with winning match of the year in this match. So, and if he is, he's so talented that he probably will. And my God, you know, when was the last time Okada choked in a big match? I mean, I sure can't remember it. I mean, Okada's big matches this year, every time have just been fantastic. So they probably will have just an incredible match. So, you know, yeah, that's the deal. Tuesday night starts at, I think it's midnight our time. Probably going to end at like 5 a.m. Wonderful.
Well, we'll do a show the next day.
We're not going to do a show right afterwards?
I thought we learned our lesson about that.
Yeah, but it's the Tokyo Dome. This is like the biggest, second biggest show of the year.
Oh, man, here we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell us about Chris Hero.
So Chris Hero, he's in the process of going to WWE. It could fall through, you know, I mean, but it's unlikely to fall through. I mean, everyone's proceeding with the idea that he's going. So that's the deal. So, you know, I mean, he's already done his medical, so he's past that point. They may find something. I mean, because the first time he went, there were issues that had to be rectified. So it's possible that there will be, but they, you know, again, he's already gone through it. They know what they are. So if some of the issues that came up the first time, they would already know them anyway. So I don't, you know, unless something's happened where there's something new, that there's something new wrong with him. You know, I would think that would, you know, he'd be fine with that. So I don't know as far as the start day, whether he's going to the main roster, NXT, what his role is going to be. I don't know any of that right now. I don't even know if they've decided, but he's on his way. So I've looked at like Evolve and everything, and I know Evolve is Evolve's becoming like this stepping stone. But they, you know, like it's Tony Nese, Drew Gulak, Johnny Gargano, Chris Hero, everyone but Matt Riddle, basically. I think there's another, you know, they've taken a lot of those guys. So, yeah, and I'm trying to think, like, I would be, well, it's just Jeff Cobb's under contract to Lucha Underground, so that one's going to be tougher to get. But I could really see Jeff Cobb being, under normal circumstances. WWE is getting so aggressive as far as trying to sign anyone who's got, it's a positive in the sense that they're so much more open-minded about who can be a star because of Kevin Owens getting over with a less than stellar physique. So now, they didn't hold that against Hero. And they're very, very aggressive right now in trying to sign people from the different, just they're trying to get before it was like they had this idea of what you had to be like to be a star in WWE, and if you didn't fit that mold, no matter how good of a wrestler you were, it was just like, well, he's a good wrestler, but he's not a star. He can't be a star. Now they realize that you don't know who can be a star and who can't be a star just based on their looks. So, which is funny because that's why, like, a lot of the old time people that followed the business and everything like that, they still have that mentality of like, Kevin Owens can't be a star, and I've had that discussion with people, and I go, but he is a star. It's, you can't say he can't because he already is. So it's like, well, the average person, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like, one of the things is the average person doesn't watch wrestling. Wrestling's being followed by a smaller group of people, and they're more hardcore, and they're more open-minded about who can be a star. If this guy can talk good and wrestle good, then he's okay, and he is okay, and so that's the deal. They're bringing in a lot of people. Nigel McGuinness is now done with Ring of Honor, so the deal with him being removed is figurehead matchmaker, so they need I guess they got to find themselves a new authority figure. So he's done, and I presume he's going as a trainer to NXT. Pretty sure that's where what the next move is for him. It's not like official, but that's what it seems like. And so it's two people from Ring of Honor that they've taken with Carino and Nigel.
Tell us about Daryl Ewald.
Yeah, I just found out like today that Daryl Ewald passed away. I think some people may know the name because of they mention, his name gets mentioned all the time on the show Inside MMA. He was let me just get his title. He was the executive. He was the vice president and executive producer for event programming for Access TV. He was actually one of the first guys that was. When Mark Cuban started HDNet like 15 years ago, Daryl Ewald was one of the first guys that he hired and as a producer. And so he did New Japan Pro Wrestling. He did the Friday Night Fights, Inside MMA. When I did Inside MMA a couple of times, he was there, and very professional, very, very easy to work with. I don't know the circumstance of his death, but he was 58 years old, which is far too young to die. And it's really, really quite sad to hear that news. And yeah, it's that's kind of shocking.
All right, let's do some of the mailbag questions right here. You can always send your questions to mailbag@wrestlingobserver.com. Moses here says, aside from guys like Lesnar, Orton, and John Cena, are there any others who make at least $1 million downside?
I'm not sure as far as like I don't know like what Rollins' downside would be, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rollins and Reigns aren't in that level. I think Jericho may not be in the sense that he doesn't work the whole year, but I'm sure that Jericho's downside prorates to, like whatever that would be, 80 a month. 85 a month, something like that. I don't know that, but I would think so. So, but yeah, I don't know exactly what everyone's making. Yeah, I mean, Undertaker, Triple H, for sure. I don't think AJ would be yet, but he might be on his next deal. trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe Roman and Rollins probably would be, but I'm not sure.
This person here sent a photograph with this email to confirm. He says, I was at Raw tonight, sat behind the production team where I saw a monitor that showed a feed of never-used backstage camera shots that all had names such as Ramp Spy, Gorilla Position Spy, and Pyro Spy. I noticed that one of the camera feeds had the name Vince Spy, which looked like it was a camera feed from backstage just of Vince McMahon sitting and watching the show. Is there really a live camera feed for the production team of Vince watching Raw?
Maybe for documentaries or something like that purposes. I suppose. I don't know.
This person says, I wonder if Dave could offer any insight into women's wrestling in Mexico, as despite how big a part wrestling has played in Mexican culture over multiple generations, it doesn't appear as though women's wrestling has ever really been a big part of it, and I am just wondering why that is and who have been the biggest women's stars in Mexico over the years.
Yeah, it's never been, the women's wrestling has never been huge in Mexico. Lola Gonzalez, and Irma Gonzalez years ago were like big. Irma Gonzalez was like the big star. Irma Aguilar, the two Irmas. So that's like the 70s and maybe even the 60s. Then Pantera Serena was pretty big. Vicky Carranza, but yeah, Lola Gonzalez was like the big star for years. And then, Fabi Apache and what's the other one? Lady Apache, all the Apache sisters were big. But yeah, never no superstar though, except for maybe the Irmas were pretty big. But even then they weren't like super big or anything like that. They weren't like, Perro Aguayo or Rene Guajardo or any of those type of guys. Not even close. So never like that big of a star, no.
This person says, I was watching the 1994 Royal Rumble. There were only 29 men in it. Bastion Booger was supposed to be in it, but McMahon announced he wasn't feeling well. Is there a reason why there was no replacement?
No, it's probably some inside joke they were doing. So,
This person here says, does Dave have any interesting Tojo Yamamoto stories? I was watching an old Memphis Wrestling Christmas special after Christmas in America last night, and boy, did he seem lonely for the holidays.
I don't know. Tojo was really famous there. Like, everybody knew him because, the TV was so big. And there was that period in the late 60s and early 70s where that territory was, Jerry Jarrett, Jackie Fargo, and Tojo Yamamoto were like the three big stars. And he was there for so long. But, as far as, like, I don't really know much about him. When I saw him, he was up in age, and it was totally preposterous watching Tojo Yamamoto. But he was over. But it's like if you didn't grow up with him, it's kind of like watching The Crusher. When I would watch The Crusher, because I didn't grow up with The Crusher, and it was like preposterous. These guys were like terrible. They were just absolutely terrible. But because the people who did grow up with him, they popped for him. So it's probably like if you watched Hulk Hogan, you never saw Hulk Hogan as a kid, and then you watched like Hulk Hogan in TNA, who was like so bad and couldn't move and everything like that. I don't know, but Tojo was, he was like 5'2", and he threw these like terrible looking chops, and everybody flew for him anyway, because the whole gimmick with Tojo Yamamoto and Jerry Jarrett, they were like as Jerry Jarrett would go in there, get bloodied up every night and beat up, and then he'd tag Tojo, and Tojo was like the lifesaver, and he'd throw those chops, and his heels would jump up in the air and take these crazy bumps for Tojo, and that was the team, that was how the team went.
This person here says, how badly did it hurt WCW to lose Sid, Ric Flair, and Lex Luger all within about a 7-month period between 1991 and 1992?
I don't think losing Lex Luger hurt one bit. Sid, God, I just remember when he left. It was like he was so bad. That match, Sid Vicious one-man gang stretcher match, that was 10 shades of awful. and I don't think even we went on a stretcher. Flair hurt a lot. I mean, people were chanting, "We want Flair" for years until he came back, at all the shows. So, I mean, but yeah, I don't think Lex Luger hurt one bit when nobody, I remember there was a deal where he was the world champion and they used up the dates. He had a certain number of dates in his contract, so his lawyer sent them a letter, whether it's just like September or October, and it was just like, you've used up all of Lex's dates, so he doesn't have to come back to work till January. So they had to pull him from all the cards, no world championship matches, no Lex Luger, and the crowds went up without Lex Luger, without world championship matches. They went up because Lex Luger was out of the main events. So that pretty much told me right then and there, what, people didn't care about him, and he was pretty dead. This was after Flair left, so the whole place was pretty. Really, when they lost Flair, it was really it took the heart out of the place. Sid, I don't know. Nah, I don't think Sid didn't hurt at all. I mean, they both sides wanted Sid really, really bad, and he was going back and forth and getting more money from each side. And finally, WCW thought they had him, and then Vince promised him the WrestleMania main event. And once he did that, Sid left. So, but he wasn't like the heart of the promotion or anything like that, or a big drawing card or anything. And Lex was probably a negative on top. So they didn't really hurt.
This person here says, I was watching night 2 of the 2015 Bola. We're in the middle of the Jack Evans and Angelico match. Angelico takes Dave's notes and writes something on them. What did he write?
God, what did he write? I don't remember. It was nothing, believe me, it was nothing of like funny or anything like that. It was just like he just did it to do something, he might have, but yeah, I don't remember. It was something like, God, what did he use? It was like just a something, just said, like I'm Angelico or something. It wasn't that, but it was nothing. It was nothing. Remember, people ask me that all the time, and it's like it was so nothing that I don't even remember what he wrote.
Like, I'm Angelico.
It wasn't that. That's not what he wrote.
This person says, have there been any updates on Speedball Mike Bailey's ability to travel to the U.S.?
Still can't. Still a long ways away. I mean, it's going to be a while before he can come to the United States. He's worked some Europe and he's worked some Japan, but yeah, he's kind of fallen off the radar, because he can't come to this country. And he's another one of those guys. He probably would have ended up in WWE by now, I would think. I'd be pretty sure he would have by now.
This person here says, in this article that is linked here, it mentions WWE held a small tryout in Osaka, Japan before the NXT show there. It does not mention any names that were there, though. Does Dave know any names that attended this tryout?
Nope, don't know.
Alrighty. This person here says, where does the gimmick of New Japan wrestlers spelling their names in all capital letters come from, as well as frequently shortening to one name? Is there a reason or tradition behind it?
The first one that I remember was Akira Nogami as Akira, but it comes from culture, like characters in like movies and things like that. It's not that unusual. So I don't know all the details about it though. But yeah, I mean, it's not just New Japan. It's all through Japanese entertainment culture and all through all the different groups in Japan. There's guys here and there that if you use the one name, it's often all capitalized.
This person here says, if Owen Hart had followed Brett to WCW in 1997, do you think his push would have gone any better than he ultimately ended up having during his WWF 1998 through 1999 run?
That's it's absolutely impossible to say. I mean, I guess my gut would say similar. I don't think it would be better, but it could be, so much there depended on, it could have been better. The problem, like you could look and go, well, look at Davey Boy and Neidhart, but Davey Boy and Neidhart really had nothing to offer at that time. I mean, Davey was just a mess by then. And Neidhart, I guess they could have done a little more with both of them, but it just wasn't there with Owen. Owen wouldn't have had those issues. So I think he would have done better. But would he have done? It's possible he could have done been pushed harder. But he was really, really talented, but they were not. WCW wasn't into rewarding good workers either. There was that thing because the main eventers didn't want the good workers getting in the main events because, number one, they'd have to work harder, and number two, they didn't want a style getting over that they couldn't do. So it was kind of so Owen would have been, although, he didn't, I don't know. I think he would have done all right, but it's possible he could have done really good, but it's I don't know. My gut is that place was so shark infested. I think, I think it'd been about the same.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up here for today. We got a lot of great stuff up on the front page right now. The new back issue of The Observer is up there. Got a lot of shows coming up. Jim Ross will be the guest on Wrestling Observer Live tomorrow.